The Rose of Sebastopol is set in 1854 during the Crimean War. Mariella is a typical Victorian miss. She's middle class, she's like the angel of the house, the Victorian stereotype. Henry has had a tragic childhood, but he's a very focused man. He wants to be a doctor. And he has been brought up really assuming that he's going to marry Mariella. And Rosa is just champing at the bit to break out of the constraints of being a Victorian upper-class girl. The novel begins in a little room in Italy. Henry is lying ill in bed in this little room, and he's a doctor who's been sent back from the Crimea where he was working among the wounded. And his fiancée, Mariella, comes out to Italy to find out what's the matter with him. They've never had a physical relationship in the past, and she goes into this room and he's lying on the bed, and he, for the first time, is really passionate. And then when he wakes up, he says, "My love, Rosa." Well, this, amazingly enough, is my old school. And when I wanted to set part of my novel in a stately home in Derbyshire, this is the garden that came to mind. Mariella comes from a suburban setting in London, and she travels north with her mother, and she finds Rosa perched on top of a gatepost and is introduced to Stukely. And at first she's very enchanted and very overawed, but gradually Rosa makes her realise that there's a lot going on under the surface. Mariella was used to a very ordered existence, and so to go out to the Crimea, where life was incredibly raw, with death, disease, violence, was a complete change and a complete contrast. So this is the old operating theatre in Southwark, and it's in a place like this that Mariella and Rosa get to watch Henry perform an operation. And Rosa is desperately excited at this opportunity. But for Mariella, she thought she was just going to go on a ladylike tour of the wards. But here she is in a crowded operating theatre among a great swarm of medical students, the only women, hanging over, pressed tight against the bars, watching this operation, watching a small child lose his leg. Suddenly she's seeing Henry up to his armpits in blood, and she's seeing him in a totally different light. It's definitely a theme of my writing to try and extract women from their historical context where they've been trapped and see them break out and to hold their own in what's essentially a man's world, and that's exactly what happens to Mariella. So she begins the novel a very confined little character, very small outlook, and by the end of the novel she's able to take on the Crimea.